You want the real truth about business? Here's the real deal. You want to grow? You want to scale? You better start taking full responsibility for every single problem that you had. Think about that. I'm Brian Cristiano, Bold CEO, and I am here today to talk to you about what it really takes. See, here's the thing, right? On Instagram, even on YouTube, everything seems so sexy and so easy. And just make this funnel and everything's gonna be fixed. Just do SEO and your business is gonna grow. Just hire the right person and everything's gonna be fixed. But for anybody that's actually been in business, that's been in the trenches, that's been around for 20 plus years like I have, you know that's all BS. Business is tough. Crap happens in business, my friends. It's not easy. That's the truth. But the thing is when it's not easy, when we end up in a situation that really genuinely isn't our fault, we get in business with somebody that steals money from the company. You hire the wrong employee that represented themselves the wrong way. They weren't truthful to you. And you're sitting there and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, those things were outside of my control. They might have been. But I want to tell you, no matter what you're going through, whether your business is successful right now and you're just looking at how to get to the next level, or you're struggling, or you're thinking about getting into business, I'm going to tell you the hard truth. It's all on you. You have to take 100% responsibility if you want your business to grow, even the things that are outside of your control. What? Brian, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. Yeah, it might be, but let me show you something. Come check this out. So here's the deal. Like, there's two problems that happen in business, right? Let's draw this. We've got two sides to the coin, two sides to the problem. And on the one side, we've got things directly in our control, right? Things directly in our control. And then we've got things outside our control, right? What's the difference? Things outside of our control, COVID. Things outside of our control, at least mostly. A manipulative employee, right? Things inside of our control. How we write our contracts. How we hire. Etc. Right? They're two different categories. And the thing is, back in the day, I used to look at this category and say, well, these things are outside of my control, right? Like I got taken advantage of by a business partner back in the day. And it was like, it really genuinely, like I didn't cause that to happen. I didn't make that person. I didn't make decisions that made that person go rogue. So it's outside of my control. But here's what happens when things are outside of your control. How do you feel about things that are outside of your control? It makes you feel what? Anxious. It makes you feel anxiety. Things that are outside of your control. And here's what a lot of you do. Here's what a lot of you do, right? Things that are inside of your control, you don't do them. You're like, oh, well, I'll hire the lawyer to write the contracts. I'll hire somebody to hire people for me. And then when it doesn't work out, you go, oh, I got the wrong person. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. They lied to me. You want to have a real rough time in business? Delegate everything and point the finger when it doesn't go wrong. I mean, when it doesn't go right. Point the finger when it goes wrong. Delegate everything and point the finger. That's how you're going to have a really rough, miserable time in business. And I'll tell you why. Because what it does is it takes away your power, whether it's true or whether it's not. Did you cause COVID? No. I hope not. Right? You didn't cause that, but it created a lot of anxiety for everybody, right? That's the reality. It was outside of our control. We didn't know what to do with it. But the thing is, the businesses that succeeded through that time, or the businesses that reinvented themselves, or the people that decided that there was their opportunity to pivot and to change. I pivoted. The thing is, the difference between those people and the people that got totally beat up, the people that never came back, the people that never reinvented themselves, is they blamed what was outside of their control. They blamed everything on the external problem. They gave away their power. It's COVID, I can't help that. Sure, but what can you do now? I hired the wrong employee. They took advantage of me. They stole money. Now I don't have money to make payroll. What are you going to do about it now? See, the thing is, it's very difficult. Our brains don't want to blame us. Our brains psychologically want to go, it's that thing, it's that person, it's the thing over there, it's what I don't understand. But what that forces us to do, or what that causes us to do, is it causes us to put all that crap into the bucket that we go, see, this wasn't my fault. But what you inadvertently do is you give away 100% of your control when you do that. See, if you want to grow, you have to take control. See, I remember that there was this one time where we had a client that wouldn't pay us. We did the work. We did everything within scope. And it was a great project. And they just refused to pay. Right? The business owner was just being a jerk. And for a while, I was like really frustrated. I'm like, why is this happening? Like, and I felt it felt personal to me. I don't know if you can relate, but like it feels personal, right? Like business, they say, oh, business and business is not personal. Yeah, it's pretty damn personal, especially when you grew the business yourself, right? The thing about it though is like, as I was going through, I'm like getting frustrated. I'm getting angry. I'm getting upset. I'm spending all this time, this energy. Going like, well, if they would just pay, if he just wouldn't be an a-hole, if they would just follow the contract, if they would just do what they said that they were going to do. And all of a sudden, it just starts to take up more and more and more time and more space in my head. And what did I start to feel? I started to feel anxious, didn't I? I started to feel frustrated. I started to feel angry. I started to ruminate and think about it more and more and more, which did what? It took me further and further away from the things that I could control inside of my business. So check this out. It's actually like extremely toxic to blame. It's toxic to blame to ourselves. We do ourselves no favor by blaming. Now, that doesn't mean that the situation wasn't real. It didn't mean that they really were a-holes. It didn't mean that you didn't get screwed over. You didn't necessarily cause it. But the thing is when you blame, you give all of your power away. And it makes you sit in anxiety. It don't feel good, does it? It's really frustrating. It takes your focus away from where you need to go. It takes your focus away from your current employees, from your current clients, from your current opportunities. And it takes you out of problem solving and it puts you into a reactive state. Now, let me ask you this. When was the last time that you were in a reactive state and you made the best possible decisions? You were anxious, you were frustrated, you were angry, and you were reactive and you made wonderful decisions. How often does that happen? Never, right? We make terrible decisions when we're anxious, when we're frustrated, when we're angry. So the thing is, it's difficult. It's difficult, but you have to take control. And so what a mentor taught me in that exact situation where that client wouldn't pay is he asked me some very powerful questions. He said, what could you have done to have avoided this situation in the past? And I'm like, but I just want to be angry about the a-hole that's not paying us. And he's like, but Brian, if you could go back in time and change something that would have avoided the situation, what could you have done? And I thought about it for a little bit. And I was like, well, I would have changed the contract payment terms like this so that we would have gotten this payment before that last milestone. And then we would have been holding on to the project as leverage. And if they didn't pay, we still had leverage. But because it was payment after the final delivery of the last milestone, we got screwed because they had all the leverage. They got what they wanted. And if they, wanted to make a stink out of it and not pay, what leverage do I have? I got to take them to court, and that's a pain in the butt. And so in a moment of total frustration was a huge aha, and it actually changed the way that I did business in the future. It actually changed the way that one instance, because I had a mentor that asked me that powerful question of what would I have done to avoid the problem. It took me out of focusing on the issue and giving away all my power and creating anxiety to looking at the future and making a tangible change that while it didn't fix that problem in the moment, that problem never reoccurred. And here's what I want to tell you. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're going to face a constant barrage of problems. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're doing $50,000 a year in revenue, or $500,000 in revenue, or $1 billion in revenue. You're going to face constant challenges, constant pushes, constant pulls, constant problems. Entrepreneur is like code for problem solver. See, the really successful entrepreneurs, they're the best problem solvers, aren't they? Right? Like, look at the Elon Musks of the world. Like him or hate him, it doesn't matter. Is he a problem solver? Yeah, he sure is. That's why he's successful. So instead of taking your frustration and looking at the problem and looking at the person and pointing the finger. Now, I'm not saying, now here's the deal though, right? Take 5 seconds and go, F you. You're an a-hole, right? Sometimes you got to project for a second. But then after that second, you got to take a step back and you got to go, okay, what could I have done differently to avoid this or to have changed the outcome of this? What could I have done differently? And then once you think about that, then you got to ask yourself like, okay, should I be doing that differently now? Because here's the deal. People look at business and they look at life in general as like a series of wins and losses. But that's a problem because it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards, right? It's like, oh, we had 2 great clients, everybody's paying, and then this one doesn't, and it screws us up. And right? It's like, it feels like this constant turmoil. But I want you to shift your perspective away from that. And instead of wins and losses, it's wins and lessons. Wins and lessons. See, because it could have been a loss that the client didn't pay. But instead, I turned it into a lesson, which then paved the way for better business in the future. Doesn't mean that I wasn't still frustrated. Doesn't mean that even to this day, I'm like, what was wrong with that guy? But I don't spend any energy or very little energy on it. I go, okay, that's the problem, that sucks. And I'm pissed off about it. But what could we have done differently? Is there something we could do now? If the answer is no, fine. What could we have done differently? And then should we implement that? Should we make that change? Because then you can take a loss and turn it into a lesson that creates more wins in the future. So if you want to grow, if you want to scale, you got to take full responsibility. Again, it doesn't mean you caused the problem. Don't be delusional. Doesn't mean you caused the problem. But if you take control, if you take full damn responsibility, there's nowhere to point except in the mirror, except at you. And when you do that, when you go, I'm going to take full responsibility here, it forces you to step up a level. It forces you to turn losses into lessons, which become wins as long as you also take action. So, here's what I want you to do. I want you to reflect on your last week or your last month and say, what was something I was pissed off about that I pointed the finger? Even if it was just in your own head. I was like, man, I blame this person. I blame this vendor. I blame this software. I blame this thing. And I want you to ask yourself, okay, what could I have done differently so that problem didn't arise in the first place? Think about it. Then I want you to ask yourself, should I do that now? Because now it doesn't matter how big the potential loss was or how small. It now can be a huge lesson, and it can change the way that you do business forever. If this was helpful, I want you to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. If you've had an experience like this before, you've had a loss that you turned into a lesson, or if you have a loss that now you're going to turn into a lesson, I want to hear about it. I'm Cristiano, Bold CEO, and I'll see you back here soon.